Hey, did you enjoy Oblivion?
No, I'm not so sure.
Well, what about Oblivion, but boring and black?
This is bullshit.
And hey, what if instead of compelling companions and side quests, what if instead of a gladiatorial arena or dipshittedly dedicated fan following your ass around, you were instead perpetually flanked by a coven of coastal commies whose personal tales and travails always and inevitably terminate in an admission of the orifice they prefer to park their pee-pee in?
He spent most afternoons with me. The problem is, I'm a coward, Envoy.
Faggot. God.
Huh, who would have thought the guy with scales wouldn't like the taste of fish? But even without the pooper posse in tow, Avowed would be a bigger shit show than Amber Heard's bedspread. From moon bounce movement to feature-deficient role-playing, and a story that should have caved our skulls clean in as it inhabits the self-same universe as the excellent Pillars of Eternity series, but instead reads like a D&D 5e fanfic. Avowed redefines disappointment. Not necessarily in the donkey punch to the back of the brain manner of some of the titles to come, but in a more irksome manner by miles. Mediocrity where excellence once tread. The worst thing about Avowed is we all wanted it to be good. First-person CRPG Pillars should have been the chromium-plated titties. But while enduring Avowed in amongst the dated 2020 George Floyd fantasy politics and your companion's predilection for penis, at some indeterminate point, something infinitely more disconcerting occurred. Here I was, wandering around a Walmart brand Morrowind, swinging a sword with a raw killing power of a foam noodle at a pool party, when it hit me like the van of peace on the London Bridge. 8 hours in, and I have yet to tender the first fiddler's fuck! And why would I, given the paint-by-numb nuts plot? Like, did I miss a meeting where every solitary story in modern games is legally required to revolve around a plague? Were Thief and Dishonored 2 such sky-smashing sales successes that every game with a budget bigger than $1.50 has to ham-fist a pseudo-story about a bunch of beleaguered peasants coming down with a cold? I mean, who wants to envoy your ass around uncovering eldritch mysteries in the living lands when you can fetch a rasher a Robitussin for some fucker with a face full of toadstool spores? Compared to the branching narrative paths of Pillars, where your choices matter more than a politician's promise, or Elder Scrolls Facsimile of Freedom, where the role-playing is out to lunch but you can bone down with a bovine if the mood so strikes you, Avowed's narrative is as narrow as it is narcoleptic. Sure, it's pretty, and on paper all the pieces are here for a fantasy saga par excellence, but when the band actually starts up, you'd see more soul in Brock Lesnar's cornrows. Is it the most offensive, unctuous piece of shit ever shat? Probably not, but if I were given it a report card, it'd have more C's than a Mexican porno. Next! Lord of the Rings games are more cursed than a Christian medallion. After a few admirable efforts in the early PC and 16-bit era, such as the excellent SNES RPG and a superb slab of hack-and-slashery, The Two Towers, this franchise hit the skids harder than Paul Walker. Conquest! War in the North! But enough about Greenland, and let us not neglect a game that if we'd had a list that year, doubtless would have topped all turddom. Lord of the Rings, Gollum! A game that bombed harder than Maduro's mansion and took Daedalic's entire development division with it. But 2025 laid the greatest goose egg of them all, a game so god-awful, so offensive, so backbendingly boring, you could almost confuse it with the Rings of Power. But the betrayal bites down all the deeper because it came from none other than Weta Workshop, the very same Kiwi kings responsible for the staggering visual achievement of the original Lord of the Rings trilogy and all that other shit nobody deigned to watch. Hence, no matter how obvious it was this game was going to be bullshit cubed, no matter that it had the worst art design this side of a Fur Affinity fan wank, and even being blatantly obvious it was crapped out during COVID, meaning this game was quite literally phoned the fuck in, gamers still cut him a benefit of the doubt check so big a Somali daycare couldn't cash it. And worst of all, they weren't alone. In early previews of the game, Corpo Journos, doubtless having suitcased all the ad cash they could keister, were unremittingly effusive. Tales of the Shire is the Hobbit game the cozy genre was always meant to have, IGN blatantly bullshat. Sure, kid, if by cozy you mean audibly begs to be suffocated by a James Sunderland hug pillow, Tales of the Shite is a lifeless life sim, a cavern cavernously crap crafting game and an RPG with no R, precious little P, and a G that stands for Jesus! In a hole in the ground, there lived the Lord of the Rings franchise. Between this bullshit and we was rangs and shit, how's about we fucking keep it there? Next!
Rings, give me all them rings, nigga.
Stop me if you've heard this one before. Designer with all but canonized sainthood among game developers promises every feature under the yellow sun and a fair few under the fucking red one. The impossibly open-ended experience will furnish a sprawling cyberpunk-topia, he insists, steeped in neon, boasting bottomless Blade Runner vibes and deeper immersion than a Ted Kennedy dinner date.
Will Ted Kennedy ever become president? Oh, I guess not, eh, kids?
A $500 million budgetary toilet flush later, surprise! It's GTA, but shit. Whoops! Better get cracking on the anime and Idris Elba DLC, dickshaft. Misdirected by ex-Rockstar vet Leslie Benzies, whose last name sounds like the drugs he was doing while making it, Mind's Eye is what happens when you crank out a clone of Grand Theft Auto, hold the Grand Theft and the auto. Folks, it's the Vice City Cyber Slop edition. From the near-complete lack of carjacking to the outright removal of the wanted system. You know those soporific sequences sandbox games are stuffed with where between missions you slow drive to an interminably blinking waypoint, listening to some suntan gay girl boss forcibly recite the plot of the game stretching back to the formation of the fucking universe? Yeah, well, Mind's Eye is what happens when an asshole makes an entire game out of that. The thinly veiled Vegas allegory of Red Rock is a glitch-addled ghost town. People with crab-walking NPCs shuffle fucking in front of your car and phasing into the fucking pavement. In other words, a thinly veiled Vegas allegory. And not unlike the real Vegas, its exteriors vacillate between the backbending boredom of all but abandoned street scenes and out-of-town topography more litterbox than sandbox. But hey, at least all the interiors have the antiseptic sci-fi dentist's office look that got old when Ann Coulter was young. Granted, it's had more patches than a hipster's favorite pair of boyfriend jeans, but if sanding some edges off solved the problem, how do you explain Laura Loomer's jawline? Lifeless, feckless, and now penniless, Mind's Eye lost a reported $100 million for publisher IO Interactive, who at this point may as well legally rename themselves Stick to Fucking Hitman. If you love Saints Row and GTA, play Sleeping Dogs. It's better than both, bitch. If you want a $60 tech demo with a frame rate of a graphing calculator, a cast stack with broccoli-haired pronoun people, and a protagonist who looks like he owns all the DLC for Boyfriend Dungeon, run, don't walk, to the pharmacy to refill your fucking medication. Next! When I heard Assassin's Creed Shadows would finally be set in Japan, I naturally assumed the shadows would be burned into the sidewalk. But what hit Japan turned out to be bigger than Nagasaki, and in the aftermath, the only unconditional surrender would be Ubisoft to the communist Chinese. After over a decade of the CCP stooges at Tencent lodging their worm tongue up the butthole of the board at Ubisoft, insisting on ESG policies and other sundry pinko bullshit that's banned back in Beijing, by the way, with Assassin's Creed Shadows, it appears Ubisoft have at last succumbed to death by 1,000 cucks. Make no mistake, even going into this game, the Assassin's Creed series suffered from an identity crisis worthy of Prince. I've said it so many times I ought to have it printed on a fucking shirt, but the only thing worse than a bad game nobody buys is a bad game everyone does. It's no accident the seismic success of the professionally fucking rushed Assassin's Creed 3 was followed by a slow, severe decline which eventually culminated in a complete Control-Alt-Delete of the damn series with Origins and Odyssey. And while Viking Vajayjay Sim Valhalla made more money than Ben Shapiro's Adderall salesman, it was also a game that wanted to do about 100 different things except be an Assassin's fucking Creed game. From base building to romance to raids, it was a kitchen sink time sink with a runtime so long it's less a video game than a life choice. It was pleasantly surprising as such for the follow-up Assassin's Creed Mirage to be the first game in an eon to actually feel like a fucking Assassin's Creed game. But if the 12 remaining longtime fans expected Ubisoft to pull on that particular thread, they evidently forgot it was attached to a tampon. Even without the world smashing wokeness, even if it hadn't ham-fistedly turned the game into Kunta Kinte Creed, even without an understanding of Japanese history that's shakier than the Fukushima fault line, Assassin's Creed Shadows would be a deliberately misguided muddlefuck, mainlining every lamentable AC cliche accrued in the Odysee cum Valhalla misadventure. In short, it's yet another Assassin's Creed caper much more interested in being the worst Witcher 3 than being an excellent Assassin's Creed. Time to phone up Altair and Ezio, my friends. Only they can give this beleaguered, beshitted series what it so desperately requires: a hidden blade to the brainstem.
Requiescat in pace, you bastard.
I don't think so.
Holy shit! What the hell even happened here? You ever play a game so simultaneously hyped and hectored by dev drama, there's quite literally no physical fucking vector by which it could wind up remotely playable? But you fire that shit up anyway out of morbid curiosity? By way of preamble, allow me to concede the obvious. Bloodlines 2 hadn't the beginnings of a chance. Greenlit, canceled, uncanceled, recanceled, and finally affixed to an engine never for a moment actually intended to accommodate it, and the end result was an HD remaster of Vampire Swan Song with the name Bloodlines bolted to its asshole, exchanging the shadow skulking and world building of what we now affectionately refer to as undead Deus Ex for a glorified corporate team building exercise with dialogue branches more pruned than the Habsburg family tree and kung fu fagalunatry standing in for combat. From fangs to phallus, we covered every inch of this Asperger's symphony in my shameless plug full review of the Ersatz RPG at issue, but the most impressive aspect of what will doubtless go down as a mammoth of monetary insolvency is also one I failed to sufficiently emphasize at the time. From the original team being brought back on, then inauspiciously shit-canned, to the slow implosion of publisher Paradox, the public's expectations were just low enough to still stand a full head taller than Nick Fuentes. Yet somehow, some way, by some ancient alchemy or satanic pact, Bloodlines 2 managed to outshit even that coprophagic expectation. In the absence of character sheets, blood points, and even a basic-ass inventory system, what remains is the shittiest choose-your-own-adventure book in the preschool library, edited by accountants and authored by a 10-man talent deficit who aims for edgy and lands on Linkin Park lyrics. But if you thought cutting out all the RPG features meant the remaining game would amplify and polish, keep reaching for that rainbow, Space Cowboy, because this game has more bugs than a Wuhan wet market, with none of the phase-through-the-floor affectionate allure of the original. In place of Bloodlines the first quirky occasional bed crapping, mostly the sequel just crap. Like a lady driver in a blizzard, or a lady driver in the rain, or a lady driver under ideal conditions. Bloodlines 2 is a monumental monkey paw wish, except it wasn't until the first finger curled that we realized it was jammed up our ass. If you want a vampire RPG and don't mind it being more chatty than Robin Williams on Blow, play 2018's Vampire and leave the latest Bloodlines to immolate in the sun. 2025 was the year the AAA industry slammed bow first into an iceberg so hard even the hackiest NordVPN shillin' shitlet YouTube hype meister was cranking out "the video game crash has arrived" essays on an hourly basis. And welcome to the party I threw back in 2012, Autismo not. Yet even among this inglorious retinue, Bloodlines 2 is a generational goatfuck, a fitting capstone to an ignominious epoch.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
Good fucking riddance, 2025, and stay out. I'm Razor Fist. Godspeed.
Why, a good part of his present position at the Institute is due to your valuable research. And another thing.
Get back, Kenny!